the Lotus offering, wealth, devotion, and the ultimate prophecy. Hello everyone and welcome back. Today, we're going to unpack a super cool ancient story. Now, this isn't just your ordinary legend. It involves an intense commercial bidding war, an unmatched display of devotion, and one incredibly special lotus flower. Without further ado, let us dive straight into this dramatic world and see how a seemingly routine transaction transformed into an eternal legend. To get us all in the right frame of mind, let me ask you a quick question. If you were to buy a fresh, blooming flower today, how much would you be willing to pay? A few bucks, a few hundred? You probably have a number in mind. But trust me, the case study we're looking at today will completely shatter your perspective on the word value. The discovery of the Paduma lotus. Our story begins in a sacred lotus pond. Imagine the scene. The temple caretaker was doing his rounds when he stumbled upon a rare lotus known as a Paduma. This wasn't the typical flower you'd spot near a riverbank. Ancient texts describe it as remarkably dazzling, radiating an indescribable beauty, the kind of perfect aesthetic that instantly commands your gaze and won't let you look away. Let us trace the initial journey of this lotus, seeing how exquisite the flower was. The caretaker picked it. His original plan was incredibly simple. He intended to present this premium lotus to King Prasenajit of Kosala. Why? Because the king was deeply devout, offering fresh flowers and fine incense to the Buddha 3 times a day. And so, the caretaker set off for the city of Shruvasti, filled with joy. The street bidding war. However, on his way to Shruvasti, the plot took a sudden, dramatic turn. What started as a straightforward delivery errand turned into a high-stakes financial showdown. That's right, an unprecedented bidding war erupted right there on the side of the road. The most fascinating part here is the stark contrast between the two competing sides. On one hand, you had a passing traveler, a dedicated disciple of a non-Buddhist ascetic tradition, and a follower who desperately wanted the flower. On the other hand, we have one of the most legendary patrons in Buddhist history, Anathapindika, the giver of orphans, who happened to be passing by with a grand entourage of Wubai followers. As fate would have it, both parties fell in love with this radiant lotus at exactly the same time. The bidding kicked off immediately. The ascetic disciple showed absolute determination. Without hesitation, he opened with a massive starting bid of Wubai kahapanas in ancient currency. You have to understand that back then, this was already a staggering fortune. But who was Anathapindika to secure this flower as an offering to the Buddha? He didn't even blink. He immediately countered by doubling the price, boldly calling out ling kahapanas. The atmosphere instantly turned white hot. But the ascetic disciple was clearly prepared, showing zero intention of backing down. He pushed the price up to ling kahapanas. Anathapindika, of course, stayed hot on his heels, refusing to yield. He aggressively countered with ling kahapanas. You can just picture the scene, pure tension, with neither side giving an inch. The numbers began skyrocketing like a roller coaster. The twist, the 10,000-fold realization. Now, brace yourself for the ultimate turning point. The price underwent an absolutely jaw-dropping explosion. It kept surging until it finally reached an astronomical peak. Ling kahapanas. My goodness, 100,000 gold coins for a single flower. Back then, that was a life-changing sum that could guarantee instant financial freedom. At this moment, let us shift our perspective. Put yourself in the shoes of that temple caretaker. He started his day as a regular working guy, and suddenly, he is holding a literal mountain of gold. But right at the verge of becoming filthy rich, a dramatic paradigm shift occurred in his mind. His internal breakthrough was profound. He suddenly paused and thought, wait a minute, if even a man as prominent, wealthy, and powerful as Anathapindika is willing to throw down a ridiculous fortune just to offer this flower to the Buddha, then the spiritual value behind this lotus must infinitely transcend these ling kahapanas of worldly wealth. So, he made a decision that defied all commercial logic, but with absolute boss energy, he boldly rejected the massive fortune right in front of him. He looked at the two high-rolling tycoons and said, I'm sorry, but this flower is no longer for sale. I am going to offer it to the Buddha myself. Walking the talk, he completely let go of the gold coins that could have changed his life. Protecting the lotus, which had now become an invaluable treasure, he turned around and headed straight for the Jetavana monastery where the Buddha resided. The miracle and prophecy. Ultimately, his wish came true, and he stood in the presence of the world-honored one. The text described that the moment he beheld the Buddha from afar, adorned with the Sanshami, jewel marks of a great man, his heart was instantly flooded with an overwhelming, transcendent joy. With profound reverence, in a mind completely pure and free of worldly attachment, he personally presented the lotus, the very one almost sold for a fortune, to the Buddha. What happened next is undoubtedly the most miraculous part of the entire historical record. The caretaker's pure, unadulterated devotion triggered an incredible physical miracle. The moment the offering was completed, as if responding to the Buddha's spiritual power at Hisha, the lotus, originally small enough to be cupped in his hands, instantly expanded. It grew as massive and spectacular as a chariot wheel. And it didn't just grow in size, it completely defied the laws of physics by levitating in the air directly above the Buddha's head, acting like a transcendent, magnificent umbrella. Even more amazingly, it possessed a sort of automatic navigation. When the Buddha walked forward, the lotus moved with him. When the Buddha paused to rest, it hovered steadily in the air, maintaining perfect stillness. Witnessing this mind-blowing visual wonder, the caretaker's faith was cemented forever. And this powerful conviction triggered the ultimate climax of our story today. Overwhelmed with immense awe and spiritual bliss, he made a profound vow before the Buddha. He prayed that by the virtue of the wholesome roots Kushalamula planted through this pure offering, he too might achieve ultimate awakening in the future and attain the supreme state of a Tathagata and fully enlightened one. Just like that, he transformed from an ordinary caretaker into an aspiring seeker of the highest enlightenment. The Buddha deeply perceived his pure aspiration, praised him warmly, saying, "Sadhu, Sadhu, noble son. Excellent, excellent," and bestowed upon him a powerful prophecy of future Buddhahood, Vyakarana. The Buddha declared that this humble caretaker would indeed attain full enlightenment in a future age, and granted him his future Buddha name, the Tathagata Padamutara, the Lotus Master Teacher Successor. Conclusion. Reflective outro. Through this profound analysis rooted in ancient sutras, we see how a seemingly ordinary lotus flower, solely because of a pure heart that refused to be tempted by money, gained a true value that far exceeded 100 old coins, ultimately earning a prophecy of enlightenment. This story leaves us with a deep question that is well worth contemplating on your own life journey. Regardless of what your belief may be, what is the most valuable offering you can give? Is it wealth? Is it time? Or is it a pure heart, given without reservation? Think about it. Thank you so much for watching today's deep dive. I'll see you guys next time.